Agriculture's been strong, obviously, this year, and it's helped the state be successful. National unemployment is something like 9%, and Nebraska is around 4.2, somewhere along there. How has Nebraska, the agriculture in it, helped to soften that?
Well, agriculture is the foundation of our state's economy. And today I would argue that agriculture is more than what occurs just on the individual farm and ranch, which has been very, very good. You also now have to look at alternative energy, what's going on at the ethanol market. We're the second leading producer of ethanol. Wind energy development, which is going to expand dramatically in our state over the next decade. And then the third component I always talk about is the food processing industry, which occurs primarily in some of our urban areas as we process all that food. So when you talk about agriculture today, it really does encompass the entire state, both rural and urban Nebraska.
Are you seeing more export opportunities from Nebraska to go maybe to Asia, which has a much stronger demand than it had 10 years ago?
There's no question our exports are up dramatically over the last 5 years from about 3 billion to nearly 6 billion now. And that's not just agriculture, it's business products in general, where we've made a real dent in the market all across the world, but particularly when you mention Asia. The opportunity to eat Nebraska beef, for example, over in Japan, China, and a number of other places is very, very crucial. It's a growing demand, and they specifically ask for Nebraska beef. And I think that's good news for our producers.
Why do they ask for that? How have you been able to get into that market and let them know that this is Nebraska, not somewhere else?
We've done a very good job, I think, of trying to market Nebraska beef in general. And then again, people can figure out the difference between Nebraska beef and Australian beef. And it's amazing how many emails I get from Nebraskans who are traveling the world. They'll go in a restaurant, and on the outside or on the inside of the menu, it actually says, "We feature Nebraska beef." Well, part of that was what we did on one of our trade missions. We actually signed a deal over in Hong Kong for a guy who owns 60 restaurants over there. He would feature Nebraska beef for a year. Well, he's continued to do that. So it's something we market and promote all the time.
We just talked with Greg Ibaugh earlier, and he said they're going to Singapore soon in January. What are the markets that you want to get into and why?
The entire world. I'm after the
Ideally,
whole,
right? Yeah.
I'm after the whole world. The whole world ought to have the opportunity to eat Nebraska beef, to have the opportunity with our other food products and products in general. But more specifically, obviously, the Asian market is very big because of China and all that's going on, Singapore, Japan, Taiwan, that entire area. Is very critical to us in terms of the growth, in terms of population, what that means for food consumptions. But again, we look throughout the entire world.
Do they develop a connection with you in terms of they know that you're from Nebraska, maybe a little bit different? You already mentioned quality, but the people have to be something that set it apart from Missouri and Iowa, South Dakota, North Dakota.
We work very hard at this through the Department of Economic Development, the Department of Agriculture, the trade missions that Lieutenant Governor Sheehy and I have gone on. We try to go all over the world, but when we go there, we try to establish these relationships. We even broke into the Cuban market, if you recall, 5 or 6 years ago, when others didn't. It is about relationships, and it's how you establish them. I think people trust us. And again, we just don't go there for one trade mission. We stay in contact by phone, by email, by letter. All of those things add up.
How do you schedule it out? I mean, it'd be easy to say, well, let's just go on 15 trade missions and send a bunch of different groups and go places and just try and blanket everything.
We look at opportunity. When I'm going to go on a trade mission, I want to know that we have an opportunity for a deal. It's more than just going there to say, hey, how's it going? And we want to establish a relationship. Hopefully, we already have the relationship in a form that if I were to go there as the governor of this state, we can sign on the dotted line. We want a deal. We want to send more of our food products over there. And generally, since I've been governor, that's been the criterion. It's worked very well for us.
I want to talk about trying to make that connection between producer and consumer. And one of the things we're seeing is a lot more of a push from agricultural groups. And in the scope of HSUS, we're seeing that there's that obvious disconnect between one group who is pandering to one audience and the other group who is talking to another audience. How do you win when you're both reaching segmented audience that already agree with you?
Well, I think there's more to it than that, okay? First of all, let's take the Humane Society of the United States. First point I want to make, they're not connected to our local humane societies to do a great job. The Humane Society of the United States is basically a left-wing organization that has a political agenda. I describe it this way. They're anti-agriculture and they're out to destroy the #1 industry in the state. They're out to destroy jobs in Nebraska. I'm not going to let them do it. And I've used the example before. A year ago, in the middle of the winter, it was minus 40, 50 several nights in a row. Who was taking care of our animals? Who cared about their welfare? Our individual farmers and ranchers. I couldn't find anybody associated with the Humane Society of the United States within 100 miles of Nebraska helping us out. Again, they've got a political agenda. They're outside the state of Nebraska, and I'm going to fight them every step of the way. And so is the entire state. It's not just agriculture. Right. We understand what this organization is all about.
And some people are going to say there's no way they can get in here and make a difference. This state knows too much about what its farmers do.
Generally, I would agree with that, but I'm not taking it for granted. They have gone into other states where people have been complacent, ag organizations, the political leadership, the community leadership, the business leadership, and they did pass ballot initiatives that were not very good for agriculture. We've been alerted to that. We understand what's occurred in other states. We're not going to let it happen here in Nebraska. We've been much more proactive. We've alerted everybody right up front, and once they understand, we had last year about 10, 12 different chambers on their own go on record against the Humane Society of the United States because they support agriculture in this state.
I want to look ahead to 2012. Farm Bill specifically, it's right now it's a little bit up in the air as to what's going to get cut. And if you go back and read the super committee, anything written about the super committee and potential reductions, a lot of people said ag is an easy target. Why is ag an easy target?
Well, I don't know why they say that exactly. You know, I've talked to several senators and congressmen at the federal level, and I've told them, if you develop a fair and balanced approach to reducing the federal deficit and the debt, which is what Americans want, we'll be supportive. But don't go out and do it in an unbalanced and biased way by only segmenting and focusing on agriculture. I don't think that would be fair. Now, agriculture will take its fair share, and we'll absorb that if we have to. Protect the safety net. Because in the big picture, I think agriculture looks very bright. We're going to have to feed a couple hundred more million people over the next 25 years, probably on less land. That means generally agriculture is going to do very well, but you got to protect that safety net. But again, just don't signal agriculture out. It ought to be across the board, look at all the industries, what's fair, what makes sense.
Quickly, as we go into 2012, biggest thing farmers can do to put themselves in positions to succeed, whether it be based on potential hurdles that you see or based on world positions that we might see shifting?
Well, I think they're going to continue to do what they've been doing the last couple of years. Our farmers and ranchers are very smart. They're more efficient. They're taking greater advantage of their resources and how they plant crops, how they irrigate, everything that they do, how they market. But the bottom line is they haven't spent money that they don't have. They've paid down debt. They've got a stronger balance sheet than ever before. If they continue to do that with prices rising the way they are, they're going to continue to be very profitable and be stronger in the future when we're going to have a down year. I mean, that's going to happen at some point. They've always got a plan for it. We just never know when it's going to occur.
Governor, I appreciate the time. Happy New Year and a good 2012 to you.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year to you.